ينضم إلينا إذن في هذا اللقاء الخاص المفكر والكاتب وأستاذ العلوم السياسية نورمان فينكلستين. بروفيسور نورمان، أهلا بك معنا في قناة المشهد من واشنطن بالأحرى. أهلا بك معنا في قناة المشهد. وشخصيا دعني أرحب بك، هذا الترحيب الخاص. أنا جدا أتابع ومعجب بمؤلفاتك وتصريحاتك، وطبعا هذا إضافة إلى دفاعك عن القضية الفلسطينية. وسعيد أيضا أنك بدأت تنتشر كثيرا في أوساط العرب ويتناقلون صوتك المهم. أسألك بداية، ما يجري في غزة، ما ترتكبه إسرائيل في غزة، إلى أي مستوى يرقى؟
Thank you for having me. The South African government last week released the document that it submitted to the International Court of Justice, saying that Israel had violated the 1948 Genocide Convention. And in my opinion, if you read this document, which is 84 pages in length, you have to walk away. You have to walk away concluding that the South African government has made a compelling, a convincing, a persuasive case that Israel is committing a genocide against the people of Gaza.
طيب، لماذا جنوب أفريقيا توجهت إلى محكمة العدل الدولية وليس إلى الجنايات الدولية؟
Well, there are several things to say. Number one, most countries in the world are signatories. They have signed the Genocide Convention. However, no countries have shown the bravery, the conviction, and the morality of South Africa, because to charge Israel with genocide obviously puts your country on a collision course with the United States. And most countries are not willing to risk that just to save the lives of innocent people. So it is to the eternal credit of the South African government that it charged Israel with violating the Genocide Convention by committing a genocide against the people of Gaza. Why didn't they go to the International Criminal Court? I think the answer is very clear. Even though the United States does not belong to the International Criminal Court, it is not a member of the ICC. Still, the officials in the ICC, in particular, the current chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, is terrified of the United States and does whatever the United States tells it, which means it's hopeless, it's a waste of time to file a complaint with the International Criminal Court. However, the International Court of Justice has 15 judges representing many countries in the world. Right now, the countries include Morocco, Somalia, and others, which hopefully will rule in favor of South Africa. In other words, there's more possibility in the International Court of Justice because there are some countries which have representatives on the court that might go along with South Africa. In the case of the International Criminal Court, pretty much everything depends on what the chief prosecutor says, and Karim Khan is a moral coward and an opportunist and will only do what the United States tells him to do.
طيب حتى تنجح خطوة جنوب أفريقيا ما المطلوب وبماذا قد تصطدم من عراقيل؟
Well, that's actually a complicated question. So I'm going to try to make it as brief and as simple as possible. The main obstacle that South Africa is going to have is when it comes to genocide, which is what South Africa is accusing Israel of, you have to prove the specific intent to destroy the people of Gaza. And it's not always easy. In fact, it's rarely easy to prove that specific intent to destroy the people of Gaza. So that's going to be their main challenge. It's not enough to say Israel's killed many people. It's not enough to say Israel has destroyed the entire infrastructure of Gaza. In order to prove genocide, you have to not just demonstrate mass death and mass destruction, you have to demonstrate a specific intent to destroy the people of Gaza. So that's their main legal challenge. And then there's the obvious political challenge. Namely, the United States is determined that Israel not be charged with genocide. Incidentally, if Israel is charged with genocide, the US is also guilty of genocide because the US has been supplying the weapons. So it's not just Israel that would be guilty of genocide. The United States was willingly, openly, consciously supplying weapons to carry out the genocide. But the US will now be applying all the political pressure, not the law, but the fist, the iron fist, to try to force countries not to agree. Just one other point. The court will now, on Thursday and Friday, they will not be deciding whether or not a genocide is occurring in Gaza. They will be deciding whether South Africa has made a case that is convincing, not necessarily it's proven genocide, but that it has made a convincing case of genocide. Because what South Africa is asking the court is, if we have made a convincing case for genocide, then you must now, not later, but you must now order Israel to stop committing the genocide. So this is not going to be a full court case where everybody's going to present all their evidence, all their arguments, which is a very long process. what South Africa now is asking is, if you believe that we have made a reasonable case that genocide is happening before our eyes in real time in Gaza, then we are asking you to order Israel to stop. And then in the future, we can decide whether or not our case is foolproof. Right now, we're not asking that. We just want you to agree we have made a good case, and so we have to stop the genocide now.
إسرائيل ستكون مضطرة إذن لإثبات أنه لم ترتكب ما ستتهم به، وخاصة الإبادة. رشحت ألان ديرشوفيتس ليدافع عنها. المفارقة أن ألان له كتاب مرافعة لإسرائيل، وأنت قمت بالرد على ألان واللي وصفت كتابه بأنه مليء بالزيف والأكاذيب من خلال كتاب ما يفوق الوقاحة Beyond Chutzpah. ما رأيك في تعيين ألان ديرشوفيتس للمرافعة؟ هل ما هذه المرة ليس من خلال كتاب بل فعليا ليرافع عن إسرائيل؟
There were some rumors early in the week that Alan Dershowitz would be chosen to defend Israel, but that turned out not to be the case. Israel selected a British lawyer named Malcolm Shaw to defend Israel. He is a very respected lawyer, Malcolm Shaw. He's a horrible human being, but he's knowledgeable. And Israel selected Aharon Barak, the former head of the Israeli Supreme Court, to sit on the International Court of Justice as one of the justices.
ما الذي يريده نتنياهو؟ يعني يتفاخر بأنه هو الذي قضى على أوسلو، ويقول لا تفكر لا حماس ولا فتح، وسماها فتحستان، في أن تحكم غزة، ولا يحلم الفلسطيني في دولة فلسطينية. ماذا يريد إذن؟ ماذا تريد هذه الحكومة؟
At different points in time, the government has wanted different things. Before October 7th, the Israeli government had created a concentration camp out of Gaza, and they just wanted the people to peacefully sit there and die in the concentration camp. It's as if you were born into a place where you were just waiting to die. From the day you were born, you had no other hope or expectation except waiting to die. That's what Israel wanted. After October 7th, Israel decided it was time to solve once and for all the Gaza question, because this place, Gaza, just won't accept its fate to sit in Gaza and just die. And so Israel decided on a range of policies. You could say at the very beginning, the first 2 weeks after October 7th, Israel wanted to expel the population of Gaza to the Sinai Desert. And the president of Egypt said, no, we will not accept these people. You are not going to throw your Gaza question on our country. At that point, Israel had two options. One was to kill the entire population outright, and two was to make Gaza uninhabitable. So people in Gaza would only have two choices. Number one, to stay in Gaza and starve to death, or number two, to leave Gaza. And that's basically where we've been the last couple of months. The range is, before the range was ethnic cleansing, make Gaza uninhabitable, and outright extermination. The ethnic cleansing option ceased to exist because President Sisi said, we will not accept your Gaza problem. And when that option no longer existed, then there were only two options: kill the entire population outright, or make Gaza uninhabitable so that people either starve to death or figure out a way to leave.
بالنسبة للإعلام الغربي، لماذا خاصة الإعلام الكبير مناصر جدا لإسرائيل، يدافع عن الاحتلال ويحاول أن يعطي صورة أن الفلسطيني هو الذي يضطهد إسرائيل ويظلم إسرائيل، وهذا الإعلام يحاول أن يروج أن الصراع بدأ في 7 أكتوبر الماضي، ويغفل أو يتعامى عن أن هذا صراعا منذ النكبة، منذ عام 48.
The mainstream media went through 3 stages. At the beginning, it was simply repeating Israeli lies. Then after a few weeks, because of the web and because of alternative sources of information, the mainstream media was unable to lie and get away with it. And then the mainstream media began to publish many stories from Gaza which portrayed Israel in a very negative light. However, more recently, the main goal of the mainstream media is to get Gaza off the front pages. They want people to forget about Gaza because many people are outraged at President Biden's support of the genocide. And many people are saying we will not vote for President Biden in November. And most of the mainstream media is liberal. It wants Biden to win. It realizes that showing the scenes from Gaza hurt President Biden and his hope to be reelected. So now the mainstream media are trying hard to make the genocide in Gaza slowly disappear from the front pages of the newspapers.
صوتك صوت مهم في الإعلام الغربي لعدة أسباب، أهمها أنه الفلسطيني أكيد سيدافع عن الحق الفلسطيني ومعه العربي، لكن صوتك صوت المفكر اليهودي الذي نجا والداه من المحرقة وأخذ على عاتقه الدفاع عن الحق الفلسطيني، وهذا كلفك كثيرا، فقدان وظائف، محاربة وهلم جرة. ما الذي قاد المفكر نورمان فينكلستين إلى أن يأخذ هذا الموقف المنصف، وأقول المنصف، للحق الفلسطيني؟
My parents passed through the Nazi Holocaust. It destroyed their lives, both on my mother's side and on my father's side. Every single member of their families were exterminated. My parents could never forget that. they were in the concentration camps, and their pain, their anguish, their torment, I observed it growing up in my home. And so it had a very big moral impact on me. And I have, from a pretty young age, been involved in the struggles of all oppressed peoples, not just the Palestinians, but all oppressed peoples. And that, I think, can be traced back to my family's suffering during World War II.
أعرف يعني بحسب ما علمت أنه أنت منعت في عام 2008، منعتك إسرائيل من الدخول إليها، لكن بكل الأحوال أخيراً الفلسطينيون سواء في غزة أو في الضفة الغربية يتعرضون الآن لأبشع أنواع الظلم. ماذا توجه لهم كلمة من المفكر نورمان فينكلستين إلى الشعب في فلسطين؟
You cannot bring back the dead. The dead are dead. And there's nothing one can do about that. But each life you save might be your own life. And so you can't undo what's been done, but you can still fight to save that life. That might be your own. And that's what I try to do.
المفكر والكاتب وأستاذ العلوم السياسية نورمان فينكلستين، شكرا لوجودك معنا على قناة المشهد.